Hello and welcome to the lecture of International Business Environment, Block 1, Unit 2. So in this lecture we will going to discuss on the theories of international trade of Block 1. Topics to be covered are the neoclassical theories of a trade. In this we will going to have a discussion on the revising the HO theorem and Samuelson-Stopler's theorem and the modern theories of a trade. So if we discuss about the HO theorem is again basically states that yes, there is the identical production functions, there is identical technologies in the two different countries, and only the factors of endorsement is going to differ the comparative advantage of that two different countries. HO theorem basically इसी चीज के बारे में डिस्कस करती है कि कैसे दो कंट्रीज दो डिफरेंट कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज में आ सकती हैं, कैसे वो अपने आप को डिफरेंटली रिप्रेजेंट कर सकती हैं. सो एक कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज को गेन करने के लिए एक कंट्री को फैक्टर बेसिस पर ही काम करना होता है. दैट मीन्स देयर इज ऑलवेज सर्टेन फैक्टर्स लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल द कैपिटल फैक्टर और द लेबर फैक्टर. सो उन्हीं दोनों के बेसिस पर वो अपने आप को एक कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज दे सकती है. सो इन दैट केस that is a country will trends to export the commodity which are relatively intensive in her relative abundant factors. That's very true because हमने इसे previous session में previous lecture में यही discuss किया था कि ये थ्योरम स्टेट यही करती है कि हमेशा कंट्री उन चीजों के साथ डिस्कशंस करेगी जिसमें वो फुल फ्लेज्ड है, यानी कि दे आर अबंडेंट विद दैट, दे आर गुड इन दैट प्रोडक्शन, दे हैव लार्ज नंबर ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर फैक्टर्स, और इसी के थ्रू और सिर्फ उसी प्रोडक्ट से रिलेटेड वो एक्सपोर्ट भी करेंगे और इम्पोर्ट वो करेंगे जिसमें वो स्कार्ड है, यानी कि लोकली उसकी वो नीड को फुलफिल नहीं कर सकते. सो इन जनरल the country tends to have a comparative advantage with this only, and which makes the country to be a capital intensive or a labor intensive. So if we talk about HO theorem, this is the very basic concept of international trade, और इस चीज ने एक बहुत ही सेंट्रल पॉइंट दिया इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड का. एक ये ऐसा प्रिंसिपल था जो एक बेसिक इंट्रोडक्शन थी कि यस दिस इज द फैक्टर जिसके बेसिस पर दो डिफरेंट कंट्रीज ट्रेड में आती हैं. नाउ वी विल गोइंग टू हैव अ डिस्कशन ऑन द Samuelson's and Stopler's theorem, that is SS theorem. This theorem is very much closely related with the factor price equalization. जैसा कि HO theorem में हमने एक चीज स्टडी की थी कि there is no major difference in the prices of that particular product because टेक्नोलॉजी और प्रोडक्शन फैक्टर्स जो हैं वो सेम है. सो इन दैट केस दिस एसएस थ्योरम इज बेसिकली स्टेटिंग देयर इज अ चेंजेस इन दी प्राइस. एक फैक्टर प्राइसेस होते हैं जिसे कंसीडर करना होता है और प्राइसेस के अंदर चेंजेस आते हैं. दैट इज व्हाई दिस स्टेट्स that regardless of the international factor mobility, factor price will trends to be equalized across the country. So हमेशा जब इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड होता है तो प्रैक्टिस और कोशिश ये की जाती है कि हम किस तरह से फैक्टर प्राइस इक्वलाइजेशन में आ सके. That means it trends to equalize across the countries. The same factor differ in the technology. So that is what the main concept or general concept of this theorem. The general condition that factor returns changes with output prices as predicted by the, in terms of जैसे ही output differ होगा factor returns differ होंगे. Now again there are the few question was rises and this SS theorems give answers of a few questions like for example the effect of changes in the price of a goods. अगर goods के prices बदल जाएं तो क्या? At the same time changes in the tariffs, अगर tariff charges बदल जाएं या फिर factor of production के prices बदल जाएं then. So this is what the central questions, and इस central question के answers जो थे वो SS theorem ने rise किए. That means this theorem is basically focusing on the price equilibrium, and yes this basically states कि किस तरीके से price effects rise होते हैं in the international trade. Now there are are certain assumptions of SS theorem. The very first assumption is a relationship between the related price of output goods and relative factor rewards, especially real wage and real returns to the capital. So now, the very first assumption basically states that there is a relationship between the relative price of output and the related factor used in that particular production. That means whatever the rewards you use, real wages you basically or a country was used, and yes, real return they were looking for a capital, they all affect the price of an output. The second assumption is neither goods is an input into the production of an other. That means whatever the product is going to be produced, that's going to be as a final product to that particular country. So that's second. Third, one country produces two goods, two factors of production. Yes, now one country have two factors of production. That means there is that one X country have the labor intensity also and capital intensives also. So that comes into the third assumption, which deals with the two goods. Another is the competition prevails. Yes, automatically this thing will rise the competition. So that is the again another assumption in that. Now the next assumption is both the factors are fully employed. That means company in this theorem have two factors now. Now these two factors are fully employed. That means fully utilized. Another assumption, factor supplies are given. There is a supplies and there is an effect of supplies on that particular factors. Both the factors are mobile between the sectors as stated in the previous assumption that factor supplies are given. There is a possibility of supplies of factor but within the country, not with the other country. So that comes into the next assumption. Both the factors are mobile between the sectors, that is industrial sectors, but not between the countries. Another, one good is capital incentive and other good must be in a labor intensive. Yes, there must be a two product of a two factor in a one country. So that two product in a one, it may be a labor intensive, another is a capital intensive. So that comes into the another assumption. And next is opening trade rises the relative price of the export goods. This will basically gives in a rise of the price. That means price may differ in the exports of goods. So the very biggest contribution by SS theorem is that it focuses on the factor of a price. This theorem basically lead the trade to the free trade. It basically gives us the trade a name of a free trade, that there must be a free trade which rises the return to the factors used intensively in the rising a price industry. That means as the prices increases in that particular industry, automatically the factor price gonna rise, and this rise of a factor affects all the prices of that particular trade. Now as you seen in this slide, we will had a dramatical representation of that two product. That is, there is an X country deals with the bread which is labor intensive and steel which is capital intensive. So there is a point A and point B which states the points of a best production possibility of both the goods. So this is more capital. If we rise up the more capital, automatically we lead towards the more production of steel. If we minimize again, if we increase up the labor, so automatically we move towards the production of bread. So that is what this diagram represents, all the labor intensive and steel capital incentives concept. Now the very biggest note is all the factor used in the export industry will better off, not all the factor used in the import competing industry gets spoiled. That is, if we were assuming that there were two products in the one country, अगर एक country के अंदर दो products हैं, तो वो दोनों ही products में एक exporting और एक importing में help कर रहा होगा in terms of जिस भी product की हम exporting बहुत ज़्यादा कर रहे हैं, that means कि वो product एक economy के लिए beneficiary है, जिसकी हम importing ज्यादा कर रहे हैं, that means somewhere it's in a hurt for that particular economy. So in that case we can state that it's a magnification effect. That is what a magnet kind of a thing. If there was a change in the price, automatically it affects the income. जो कि हमने previous slides में भी discuss किया था कि if the prices of a factor differ or the prices of the output differ, automatically ये पूरे trade को affect करेगा. For example, the 70% decline in the price of bread can lead to be a more than 75% decline in the income of labor used in the production of bread. So that is what the magnification effect of that particular theorem. This theorem again, yes, as very much stated that there must be a equalization of a price in each sector, in each concept. There must be an equalization because it's in a balancing kind of a thing. Effect of a trade open on the income distribution again was there, because if 75% of a price was decrease of bread, as we take the example, so automatically the income decreases. So that means there is an impact of the income distribution also in that particular country. So that is what the SS theorem. Now in this theorem, what is factor price equilibrium theorem was stating? There are certain assumptions of factor price equalization theorems. The very first assumption of this is there are two countries using two factors of production using two products. Another is, that is again a two country having a two factor of productions, one to the one country, another to the another, and yes, they have two products. At the same time, each factor supply is fixed. That means the output is somewhere fixed. And yes, no migrations was allowed between the countries. And each factor is fully employed in each country with or without the trade. That means whatever the factor the country have, वो factor full-fledged है उस particular country के लिए, either वो trade करे या ना करे. Another is production function exhibit the constant return of a scale and are same between the countries of an industry. That means it's again a constant return to the scale. As we can state that yes, this is again a very big assumption in all the theorems, that is there isn't a constant return of a scale, and yes, at the same time they were basically working on the perfect competition. So there are no transportation or information cost, किसी भी तरीके की technology cost या transportation cost नहीं है, because we were assuming that all country have it at a very same level. Free trade is there, and yes, the production function are not subject to the factor intensive. So जितनी भी production functions हैं वो factor intensity से linked नहीं करते. Production functions having all their resources, and both the country produce both the products with or without the trees, as they were full-fledged. So in previous session we will discuss that country A and country B dealing with the potatoes and the shoes. So they are full-fledged with them if they don't have a trade. Trade नहीं था तब भी वो fulfill कर रहे थे, but yes, trade होने से उनकी consumptions और एक betterment आ गई economy के अंदर, एक growth आ गई economy के अंदर. So that is what the assumptions of factor price equilibrium. Factor price equilibrium is not only taking a consideration of commodity price. They are not considering that equalize only a commodity or a product price. They basically discussed, or they also include the factor prices in it also. That means there must be equalization in the factor prices. Why this equalization is basically discussed? This equalization is basically discussed because the main motto of this theorem is to bringing out same wages, same rent of that particular capital in both the countries. That is, for example, if country X have a capital intensive technique, so that means they have a same, or we can say that the equal kind of price. Whereas if a labor intensive countries was there, that means they have a cheap labor or they have an equal amount of that product. Now factor price of equilibrium wants to balance it, wants to equalize it. So that is why they talked about that free trade will equalize not only the price of that particular commodity, but bringing out the factor of productions or the factor prices at an equal level. That means they were going to discuss about that the wage rate and rental of the country is going to be on a same basis. So this is what comes into the factor price equalization theorem. Now the modern theory of a trade. Modern theory of a trade have again changes. In the previous classical theories and neoclassical theories, we were assuming that yes, there is a perfect competition in the market, and yes, at the same time they have a constant rate of return to the scales. Now in a modern theory, the whole market structure is neither a monopolistic neither a oligopolistic. That means that there is a large number of producers dealing in the different products with different qualities. So that makes the modern theories of trade. That means there were n number of producers dealing with the different products, having a different qualities and design of that particular product. At the same time, this will rise up to the competitions also. The producers which are just differentiated horizontally, they similar to the qualities, they may similar to the quality, they may similar to the design, and yes, at the same time they may similar to the product itself. So that lead to the higher competition. So in that means that technology varies with the quality or the type of production. Now there is a difference, there is a vary in the technology. So in the previous theories we were going to discuss that technologies are same, but now technologies varies in the modern theories of a trade. Now it is time to sum up this session. The very first is that the concept of capital intensive and the labor intensive. This is what, considering the company which is good in capital intensive, the export is according to that and import is according to that. So that is what all about for the today's session. So thank you so much, IBO.